Humans have lived on the Australian continent for at least the last 50,000 years. Artwork across the Australian landscape represents Indigenous cultural, economic, and social systems which have been established and sustained for tens of thousands of years. The extensive galleries of Indigenous artwork are currently threatened by destruction due to mining operations and other industrial pursuits. Dreamtime is used to describe important aspects of Indigenous Australian spiritual beliefs and existence. The dreaming are stories and myths of Dreamtime, and they are the primary source of inspiration for artwork. Petroglyphs are ancient rock engravings or carvings. Songlines are physical markers on the landscape used to navigate and pass on complex natural and cultural knowledge. Songlines trace the journeys of ancestral spirits as they created the land, animals, and lore. Rock art is paintings, engravings, carvings, and peckings on rock surfaces, usually in rock shelters or near the mouth of a cave. Indigenous Australians represent members of the world's most enduring and continuous human culture. Art from Indigenous sacred sites predate most of the world's Paleolithic art sites, and few other Paleolithic art sites represent the same longevity, integrity, and diversity found in Indigenous Australian art. Rock art is an important part of Indigenous lives today. It plays an active role in illustrating the meaningfulness of Indigenous knowledge and histories. Rock art is often regarded as the work of either living individuals, ancestral beings, or deceased kin, and it represents their activity on the landscape. The Burrup Peninsula in remote Western Australia Pilbara region in the Dampier Archipelago is an area of extensive Paleolithic art galleries, including petroglyphs which are roughly 30,000 years old. The indigenous people who originally inhabited the peninsula were subjected to various colonistic threats between 1788 and 1868. In 1868, a police troop invaded the island with the intention of killing the entire population for revenge. It was thought that the massacre started after an indigenous man stole flour and was placed in jail. He was then freed from prison by two friends, but they ended up killing a policeman and two others in the process. The police troop was then dispatched to find the perpetrators, which is when the massacre took place. Other neighboring indigenous groups heard of the massacre and memorialized the events by inscribing it within the songlines of the Burrup. Standing stones were erected to provide the spirits of the Yabura a voice. 96 standing stones were arranged and inscribed as markers of the individuals killed during the Flying Foam massacre. Within a century of the massacre, large corporations began to survey the landscape for mineral and resource deposits. The Burrup Peninsula was found to be rich in iron deposits, and the industry took hold under the policy of terra nullius. Nearly 10,000 individual petroglyphs have been destroyed due to industrial development in the Burrup region. Indigenous artwork is threatened across Australia, largely due to industries such as mining. This map represents all mining operations and active permits in 2013 and compares it to rock art sites throughout the region. The Burrup Peninsula, Wellington Range, and Huron region are all areas of extensive Indigenous rock art. Recently, a cultural site belonging to the Putulu Kunti Kurama and the Pinikura people, which represented at least 46,000 years of continuous human activity, was deliberately destroyed by the Rio Tinto Mining Corporation. This offense caused national and international condemnation and put increased pressure on various other mining projects. The outdated and weak legislation that currently acts to protect the Indigenous heritage of Australia does little to protect the threatened cultural heritage. Each year, people apply for applications from the Australian government for permission to disturb or damage sites of Indigenous cultural heritage. Between 2012 and 2017, 704 of such permits were issued and only one request was denied. In response to the destruction of the Putulu Kunti Kurama and the Pinikura cultural site Yukon Gorge by Rio Tinto Mining Corporation, major Indigenous organizations came together to form a national network to stop the destruction of Indigenous cultural heritage. The Indigenous representatives issued a statement requesting to meet with the responsible ministers from the Commonwealth states and territories to discuss a process for reviewing cultural management and protection legislation. Additionally, they requested that, in the meantime, people not make any decisions that will damage our cultural heritage. In 2015, locals of the Burrup region were interviewed about their opinion of the mining operations in the area. Most locals interviewed expressed support for the mining industry and believed that the corporations were doing a good job of preserving indigenous art sites and artifacts. The Pilbara region contains 60% of the nation's iron production and 75% of oil and gas resources. Industrial expansion is argued for in this region due to the resource deposits, and the destruction of cultural and natural landscapes are viewed as collateral. Well-managed tourism can provide cross-cultural understanding and influence conservation policy. However, poorly managed tourism can lead to a decrease in site integrity and visitor experience, as well as create negative cross-cultural attitudes. The King Khans region has a high degree of cultural significance. Various sites show evidence of occupation dating back 15,000 to 30,000 years ago. Community-based natural and cultural resource management employs young indigenous people from the local area to record rock art sites. Laura in King Khan Country offers tourists guided tours of rock art sites led by local indigenous members with traditional ties to the region. The indigenous rock art of Australia is profoundly significant not only for local indigenous communities but for national and global heritage. The artwork within the Australian landscape represents the world's most enduring and continuous human culture and should be protected so it can continue to be practiced and passed on to future generations.